The content in this video is not meant to offend, but is available for the purpose of educational insight on the struggle and psychological trauma taking place in the mind of the so-called black woman. And in her defense, it shall be noted that there is nothing wrong with accepting help, but to realize that the so-called black woman we see today is a result of the biblical curse on the so-called black people, in addition to centuries of systematic psychological brainwashing, the complete rearranging, or in other words, reversing, of a once stable and natural mind.
Well, what are we gonna do with the drinking situation? Okay, I need a cocktail. Who needs a cocktail?
Cocktail.
Yeah.
I can use one.
I need a margarita. Anybody want a martini?
I know I need one.
You can spike my water. How about a margarita instead? Okay, that's fine.
Tell me that ain't James rolling up with a white girl.
Oh, hell no. Oh, that's fucked up.
I know you're not gonna let him disrespect you like that.
Just wait here, I'm gonna go and get her.
You want me to get her for you?
No, it's okay.
Oh, hell no. He's gonna kiss the bitch in your driveway.
Hell no, now that's really fucked up.
He only brought her over here to piss you off. He came to pick up Lena, but he should have came by himself. Bastard.
What?
What? What's up with the white chick?
What does that have to do with me picking up Lina? Is she ready?
You weak punk. You had to go and get a white girl? What's wrong? You couldn't find a sister that would lay down and let you walk over her?
What are you trying to say, Tanya?
She's saying you a weak ass nigga.
A weak ass nigga.
Yeah, weak ass nigga. I hate black men like you. Too weak to deal with a strong black woman, so you gotta go find a weak white girl to walk all over her. And spend her nights with your dick in her mouth.
Tell him, girl.
Weak black man, huh? Say, Butcher, do you have a man right now?
No, I'm tired of you weak ass niggas.
And you, Linda?
No.
What about you, Joy?
Yeah, white man.
A white man?
Yeah, she had to go get a white man. Cause all y'all niggas is out dating white women and there ain't none left.
How long were we married, Tanya?
4 years.
Have you ever noticed me to be attracted to a white woman?
No.
And how long you know me before we got married?
3 years.
3 years. In this time, have you ever known me to be with any white girl?
No.
No. This house here, who bought it? Let me answer it for you, Tanya. This house we live in, I bought it, and all the furniture in it. And now, I live in a bigger one. Let's not even talk about the car and the monthly alimony check. You don't even remember the last time you walked. And you and your angry little crew are gonna call me a weak black man? Why? Just because I like to come back home to a peaceful house at the end of the day? Instead of going back to a drama like I had with you for 4 years? So you think a black man is weak just because he doesn't feel like fighting every single night? If this woman here, white or any other color, if she can bring me some balance in my life, I really don't care about you and your little angry crew are saying. But let me set the record straight. I am not a weak black man. I am a tired black man. Tired of dealing with angry black women like you and you. Now where's my daughter?
The so-called blacks in America hit what we believed a revolutionary peak during the 1960s. It was during this time that black men took control of their roles as leaders and black women followed. Black marriages were at its best. From 1890 to 1960, black-on-black marriages represented 80% of all marriages. It was during this time that the bond between the black man and the black woman grew strong as they fought against what they referred to as the common enemy. This was a people who band together in an attempt to reach a common goal. They were right in that they were an outcast to society. This they knew. They weren't blind to the fact that they were not equal, but what they didn't know was why. As a result, today black women seem to have ceased the fight and being supportive. She grew tired of standing by her man, grew tired of watching him fall, grew tired of fighting for something that never produced any real results. And so she instead fought against him, the black man. And as a result, like the reverse effect of the Great Migration, her entire nation from the 1960s on into the new millennium slowly dwindled way back down to the bottom of the boot.
A lot of men are afraid of women who have a college education, who are making 5 to 6 figures, so they're intimidated. They say we have too much air about ourselves. We are too independent. We don't want to depend on anybody. But society and the way of life puts us in that position.
We were talking, and he started laughing. He said, Aaron, what do you think women's liberation is about? And I said, I'm pretty conventional thinking about it at that point. I said, I think it's that women have the right to work, get equal pay with men, just like they want the right to vote. You know? And he started to laugh. He said, you're an idiot. And I said, why am I an idiot? He said, look what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. We funded women's lib, you know? And we're the ones who got all of the newspapers and television, the Rockefeller Foundation. He says, and you want to know why? He said, there were two primary reasons. And there were, one reason was we couldn't tax half the population before women's lib. And the second reason was, now we get the kids in school at an early age. We can indoctrinate the kids how to think. This breaks up the family. The kids start looking at the state as the family, as the school, as the officials, as their family, not as the parents teaching them. And so those are the two primary reasons for women's lib, which I thought up to that point was a noble thing. You know, when I saw their intentions behind it, where they were coming from, when they created it, and the thought of it, I saw the evil behind what I thought was a noble venture.
We're raising a nation, if you will, or a period in our life where the producing part of the family, we largely female as opposed to male. And that has tremendous implications, I think, for African American family. And I believe that it does not start in college. It can end in college, but it starts early on. And I think there's a difference in how the families, the parents of the students, seem to support or encourage females more than males to get an education. I think we're more apt to see the male in that family as earning a living in a different way, or becoming a sports star, or something of that nature. And education is more secondary.
One of the key components in the death of the supportive sisters we've seen during the 1960s into the independent women we see today is the feminist movement. And while it alone cannot be to blame for her rebellion for a natural existence she once cherished, it is 95% of the majority. From a website called Jeremiah Project states the following. Rising from the progressive era of the early 1900s, the feminist movement was largely influenced by the eugenics movement and is at the forefront of population reduction efforts to exterminate useless eaters.
The Correction Corporations, the International Planned Parenthood Federation, the forced abortion, forced sterilizations, the Sons of Satan, Operation Depopulation. From 1924 to 1976, 32 states in the U.S. utilized eugenics programs to depopulate the country of so-called weak breeds who were downbreeding the American population. Some 65,000 black youth from public school districts throughout the country were given a biased IQ test. All who failed the test were sterilized against their or their parents' will.
Anarcho-communist organizer Emma Goldman theorized and advocated for an integrated philosophy of women's liberation, anti-capitalism, and anti-authoritarianism. Aside from advocating free choice in sexual relations, she called for access to birth control. She served as a mentor to Margaret Sanger, who went on to found the American Birth Control League, which eventually became Planned Parenthood. Some would say feminism is about basic human rights, and that is just a modern social movement. The truth is, the feminist movement is neither modern nor social in its origins. At its roots are ancient, highly religious elements that are rarely, if ever, mentioned. The spirit of feminism is the spirit of witchcraft and rebellion. The spirit, he goes on to say, manifested in Jezebel. It is the spirit which rejects God's lawful order and authority and tries to usurp that authority to itself, as did Eve in the Garden of Eden. The Jeremiah Project. While her rebellion can be traced to have began way back in Genesis, it regained its power during the 1970s, with statistics that well document that black-on-black marriages failed as black women became more and more aware of their ability to climb the corporate ladder, at exactly the same time feminism was implemented. For example, from 1974 to 2004, the median income fell 12% for black men while rising 75% for black women. It is also noted that the black nation saw more marriages during slavery than they do today.
Today, about 45% of African American women have never married. 50 years ago, it was only 20%. 45% of African American women have never married. Obviously, I'm not married because I don't want to be married, but I'm with a wonderful black man and have been for many years.
I'm not on the mommy track. I'm not particularly interested in getting married.
When my 17, my 11, and by the time my 6-year-old is up in age, who's going to be married? Why do we have to get married?
Now, if I got married again, I don't think I could do that same compromise. It would be hard. It would be hard for me because I know I can do a little things on my own. But I would love to have a mate to stand there with me and support me and help me grow and help me raise my kids. But it's hard. You don't want to give up so much of your life. I don't want to give up my freedom, I guess.
It's at a barbecue and ain't got no ribs.
You are always complaining. Girl, go eat what's on the grill.
And it ain't no man here either.
Then go get on MySpace and find yourself one.
But didn't you just have a man last week? Last week is last week.
I ain't mad at you.
Hey, Mama. What the fuck you getting in grown folks' business for? I wanted some money for the ice cream truck. You can't have no money. Get out of my face. Acting like your daddy.
Do you have to talk to him like that?
You know what? Mind your own business. You don't know what I go through. You know what, Shantae? You don't want to get with a man like your brother or your daddy, okay? Just trifling niggas. Hate you.
I walked into a store once with my husband and was greeted by a black woman. I handled my business and walked out the store. Now, the woman didn't know me. She didn't know me from a can of paint, let alone my personality. However, some of her words used to define my character were weak and old school. I didn't blame this woman, nor did I become upset with the words she chose to use for my character. Instead, I praised the eye. She simply didn't know any better. During much of my research on this very topic, it has been determined that the so-called black woman is currently fighting a serious case of psychological trauma, all taking place in her mind. She has been implanted and rooted in a deception so deep that only Yah can pull her out of it.
Male and female role reversal 101. In her natural uncivilized state, she would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency towards her dependent male offspring and would raise her female offspring to be dependent like her. We reverse nature by burning and pulling uncivilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence.
I was born and raised to be strong and to be hard, and that's just how most of us were brought up.
Handle an aggressive black woman.
Really?
Yeah.
And we're supposed to?
Yeah.
Why?
Because.
You feel like a lot of black women have an anger issue?
I don't feel that way. No. I know a lot of strong black women that don't have anger
What does
issues
strong
at
black
all.
woman mean? Please explain, because every time I hear strong black women, I'm getting chewed up. Now, what does it mean other than I can give you grief and you can't shut me up? And I'm going to wear you down until you just want to hit me. But I know you ain't going to do it because you're a weak punk. What does it mean when they say strong black woman?
My definition, or what I experience, or what I know, a strong black woman is someone that take care of her business.
I don't have a problem with your definition of strong black woman. How about that other definition where the women aren't doing nothing but saying you can't deal with a strong black woman like me?
They're not strong. They're not strong.
Many black women have been tricked into a false belief of what it means to be strong. Thus, they can only attain a false definition of what it means to be weak. When asked, many black women have come to the conclusion that to be strong is the ability to take care of oneself, to provide and to take responsibility for oneself. Nowhere in her definition does it include a husband or a family. Neither does it include knowledge of where she's come from and who she is. Many have deemed this strong black woman syndrome as noted in the film The Tired Black Man. There is no secret that her definition is rather selfish, but how can we expect her to know any better? In her defense, it has to be noted that she's grown up in a world without order, and that her views on life is due in large part to centuries, in addition to the curses, of systematic psychological brainwashing and complete rearranging, or in other words, reversing of a once stable and natural mind. She doesn't understand that her role is a great one. Webster's online dictionary defines submission: the condition of being submissive, humble, or compliant, an act of submitting to the authority or control of another. When faced with this definition, many sisters can't see the positive, and instead their eyes have rested far too long on the word control. Their ears have heard nothing but the word control. See, in her mind, there is a picture of a woman being beaten, stepped on, or thrown against the room. Where did this come from? Why do these images invade her brain when faced with the word control? Is it her lack for a spiritual foundation? The black woman is the only woman who has a problem with this part of the definition. She is the only woman who has neglected to read her book, although everybody else did, called the Bible. To the woman he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception. Bring forth children in pain, and your desire is for your husband, and he does rule over you. Genesis chapter 3, verse 16.
The nationalities, most white women, they bred to be submissive. Chinese women walk in the back. That's they stay culture. That's they tradition and they ways of doing things. We totally different. Okay.
But I mean, like what she was saying earlier was like he's just with her because she's gonna lay down and roll over and let him have his way. Not necessarily true.
In the same way, husbands, live understandingly together, giving respect to the wife as the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the favor of life, so that your prayers are not hindered. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. According to these definitions, the man has been placed over the woman in authority because of her disobedience. Likewise, the husband is instructed to love his wife and to remember that she is the weaker vessel. Therefore, a husband who beats and steps all over his wife, who verbally and physically abuses her, is not ruling over her in the matter instructed. He is not of Yah, for Yah is love. But in order for the Hebrew woman to completely understand this, she has to first understand who she is and who her Creator is. If these two things are non-existent, neither is her understanding. She will then continue the mindset introduced to her. Her daughters will mimic this mistake, and the Hebrew nation will perpetually fall victim to the snares and traps of those that remain inside the matrix.
You might want to ask yourself why the entire culture is utterly saturated with mass media entertainment from all sides, while the educational system in America continues its stupefying downward slide since the U.S. government decided to take over and subsidize the public school system.
What your government pays for, it gets. When we understand that, then we look at government-financed institutions of education and see the kind of students and the kind of education that's being turned out by these government-financed schools. Logic will tell you that if what is being turned out in those schools was not in accord with what the state and the federal government wanted, then it would change.
Why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? The Matrix. Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time if it can touch some substantial original historical base. And they advised us that the best way to deal with this phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions. The Willie Lynch Letter.
It is very important that you understand the reversal of meanings over time for the purpose of a wicked indoctrination. Many meanings we see today mean the complete opposite of its origin, and submission is no different. We have got to ask Yah for the understanding of such word, where thereby, when we think about this word, it will not produce for us many images we see blasted all over the television, the radio, and inside the books of scholars. And the only way to do this is to come back to our natural way of thinking. In addition to the curses, the molding of the black women we see today began here. The spirit of Jezebel reigns mighty and high in this letter, and she, Jezebel, had to first infect the head. You see, the reason many of us confuse submission with being weak is because our Gentile brothers and sisters, unfortunately, due to our lack of teaching, had no idea the order provided them. White men didn't know how to head their households and did not understand what it meant to be a loving husband. So they beat their wives who stayed at home and raised the children. As difficult as it may be for some Hebrew women to come to terms with, many Gentile or so-called white women understood and still do understand the act of being submissive. But we call them weak. We call them docile.
Wait a minute. A lot of black women have said that interracial relationships don't work.
I think it's just,
You've been with the same man for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're living proof that it works.
Oh, it does work.
This is your son?
Yep, that one and 14, same man, not a 16-year-old, same man.
And a 16-year-old. So for all the people that say interracial relationships don't work.
Oh, it does work. You gotta make it work.
Wow.
You gotta make it work. You gotta believe it's gonna work and you gotta try for it. You can't let it burn out. You can't let all this negativity around. Because there's always gonna be somebody that says, oh, you know, he's just with her because she's a white girl. She's gonna let him walk all over her. It's not.
But like September 11, 2001, feminism wasn't just something that popped into existence. Not just something that happened, but something that was well planned. Susan B. Anthony was an early leader of the American women's suffrage right to vote movement and to gain equality for women. Susan Brownwell Anthony was born on February 15, 1820 in Adams, Massachusetts. Anthony attended her first women's rights convention in 1852. From that first convention until the end of the Civil War, she campaigned from door to door and in meetings for the two causes of women's rights and the abolition of slavery. The passage of the New York State Married Women's Property and Guardianship Law in 1860 gave married women in New York greater property rights and was the first major legislative victory. In 1872, Susan B. Anthony and 15 supporters from Rochester became the first women ever to vote in a presidential election. Susan B. Anthony spent the rest of her life working for the federal suffrage amendment after she noticed that most historical literature failed to mention any women. In 1877, she and her supporters sat down to begin writing the history of women's suffrage in 5 volumes. With the lack of understanding of submission by her and that of her peers, Anthony became one of America's first feminists. The history of women's suffrage has become something of a feminist Bible to which many praise her, and I quote, a singular feminist and her suffrage movements as the emergence of an independent women's movement. Clearly, the women of these times defined submission based on a definition of ignorance, and it is also important to understand that Susan's desire to lead women further from their role in the household comes from a man telling her that women could not speak. And although the men of her age did not fully understand its meaning, Scripture does support this. Let your women be silent in the assemblies, for they are not allowed to speak, but let them subject themselves, as the law says. And if they wish to learn whatever, let them ask their own husbands at home, for it is improper for women to speak in an assembly. These scriptures forbid women to stand the assembly as leaders of a congregation, not as a leader in general, and not in the sense that women must not have an opinion or suggestion about anything. Then a wise woman called out from the city, listen, listen, please say to Joab, come nearby so that I may speak to you. And he came near to her. And the woman said, are you Joab? And he answered, I am. Then she said to him, listen to the words of your female servant. And he answered, I am listening. 2 Samuel chapter 20, verses 16 through 17. Submission lies not in that you cannot speak, but in how you speak. Notice that this woman asks the man's permission to speak, not because she is his slave, but because she is respectful here, humble, so that everything may be done decently and in order. On December 1st, 1941, the United States entered World War II. One of the aspects of the war efforts was the sudden change in governmental and consequently social attitudes toward women's participation in the workforce. This is not to say something is wrong with working, but everything has its origin. As one commentator put it, the war caused a greater change in women's status and outlook than a prior century of reform and rhetoric had been able to achieve. By 1943, with men away at war, the combination of an almost full workforce participation on the part of single women and the demands of war production meant that housewives and mothers were now accepted industrial workers. When World War II ended, the percentage of employed married had risen from 15 to 25% of all married women. For about one-third of employed married women, their war job was the first time they had worked outside the home, and the single independent woman was born. With the feminist movement came tons of ads, commercials, speeches, and books that frowned and demonized the act of submission, such as Sojourner Truth's Ain't Our Woman.
Here, the black abolitionist Sojourner Truth, who was freed from slavery in 1827, speaks to a gathering of feminists in Akron, Ohio in 1851.
Well, cheerman, well, there is so much racket there must be something out of kilter. I think twixt the Negroes of the South and the women of the North all talk about rights, the white man will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helped me in a carriage, or over a mud puddle, or gives me the best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted. I can work as much. No man can head me. I can work as much. No man can head me. I gathered in the barns, and ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I get it, and bear the lash as well, and ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most of them sold off to slavery, and when I cried out in my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me, and ain't I a woman? When they talk about this thing, what's that thing in the head? What they call it? Intellect. That's it, honey. What that got to do with a woman's rights, a Negro's rights? If my little cup won't hold but a pint and yours hold a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Then, that man there, that little man in black dress, he said, women can't have rights as much as men, cause Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man ain't had nothing to do with it. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back right side up again. And now they is asking to do it. The men better let them.
You see, it had to be understood that men were bad news, especially Hebrew men, and in order to remove the Hebrew woman's historical foundation from which the natural order existed, the brain was infected with the contagious tumor, and the black woman does not want to be infected. As a result, today the word submission sends shockwaves throughout our body. Nerve waves invade our brains, and an alarm goes off as this very brain replays images, speeches, words in our head, all triggering a negative reaction to such words.
Women stink on a level, a high level.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree there are no good black men.
Yeah, I don't agree. That's
I've dated every race, and the one guy I'm happiest with is a black man, and I'm not black.
Here's what it is. I talked to a clinical psychologist. We have named it Angry Black Woman Syndrome. Here's where it comes from.
Oh my God.
Oh my
no,
God.
I'm sorry. I'm listening. I'm listening. Go ahead. No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We are angry,
Okay,
so don't expect me to just stop. Okay, please, my anger, please, because I think I have the right to be angry. Okay, now, and I'm going to face it. I have the right to be angry.
You do.
Okay, no, you're not, because whenever you try to tell me why I shouldn't be, you're taking away what I say. But what you do is you devalidate what you say. Anytime you say, but, you never, or try to say.
You have the right to be angry, and men have the right to decide they don't want to deal with the anger because
Why
they
not?
didn't do it.
Why? No, you didn't.
Am I
but you
obligated
did.
to do
But
it?
yes, you are.
Don't raise, if a woman is not raised right by both parents, there's things that you have to learn from your father and there are things that you have to learn from your mother in order to go through society and not cause a wreck and everything.
You're saying, my brothers, they never learn how to respect a man in the first place.
Never,
So
because
how they
their
gonna respect
mothers, because their mothers, as they were raised, may have done things to disrespect the fathers in their absence. Oh, your daddy ain't no good. all these niggas are just the same. They're all the same. That's not true. And that picture should never be painted for a child anyway.
I feel she's angry, and that comes out in her speech. And maybe she said that I don't see my black man as a bad black man because I don't know, but maybe it's because I haven't had that experience. My father was there; he was amazing. I've dated other races, good and bad, and now I'm dating a black guy, and he's great.
Maybe the reason she can't find a black man is she doesn't believe they exist.
I haven't
Could that
found
be
any
it?
that are just good. I just haven't.
You give a good.
I'm a queen. I'm royalty. I want to be treated like royalty at all times. Okay? I'm royalty. So, I mean, my thing is, why should I have to stoop lower than what my
And what
expectations
country are
are?
you the queen of?
Baby, I am the queen of Tanya's country. Okay? Hello. All right. And if you don't know, get into my world. And
So
it
you
all
gotta
starts
decide.
off as real peaceful, but at a certain point, a man is gonna do something to make a woman mad.
He's just gonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. A man is gonna do
You have a
something.
man right now, Tanya?
Crack. Do you smoke crack? Weed. Do you smoke weed? I will tell you what just happened. Two things. Shock and realization. The word crack shocks us into images of abandoned children, women strung out, men overdosing, gangsters in training standing guard at street corners. But the word weed relaxed us, if only a little compared to the brain's reaction to the word crack. See, weed is not that bad. It may produce images of young adolescents on street corners, sure, but it also brings back memories of parties, past days, or medical commercials of the drug being used for medicinal purposes. Already we began subconsciously making excuses for the word. But maybe if we were taught the truth about weed, it may trigger the same reaction as our first. Marijuana, also known as weed. Tiny droplets of chemicals in marijuana reduce sperm count, bred to be addictive. It can result in mild, severe, or delayed withdrawal symptoms, such as chills, anxiety, food craving, also known as the munchies, related to liver damage, headaches, diarrhea, hot flashes. The list goes on and on. The truth of the matter is that there is no real difference. Both are drugs and are harmful to the body. But this is not what we've been taught. And when faced with the words submission and strong black woman, they are no different. Both trigger either a negative or a positive reaction. Let's look at the word strong. Consequently, it too has had its meaning changed. From the Webster's Online Dictionary, having or marked by great physical power, having moral or intellectual power, having great resources, not easily subdued or taken, well established. From the Webster's and Thesaurus Hard Copy Dictionary, the quality of being strong, power in general, degree of concentration or potency. Unfortunately, not easily subdued or taken is the only closest real definition. But none of these definitions give the true meaning of what it means to be strong, but they are in our dictionaries.